something that I do, but there's many different parts of my life. My life commitment is being a psychic, but being a psychic isn't just doing readings. Being psychic for me is giving service whenever I can, and part of that service may not necessarily be doing a psychic reading, but driving a cancer patient to the hospital. That's giving service. But I'll find these people by my intuition or by how they brought to me. Just as when I worked with that guy that was in the coma and looking for the cure for the superbug, I knew what was going on with him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I knew how he was and his. I knew when he was in trouble. I knew when his vital signs changed, when he was going into shock, and I did that. I also over about a 14-month period, I was a kind of life coach with a young woman that had 4th-stage cancer. And I was I had again a mental link with her, and I knew when she was in pain. I knew when she was having trouble. I knew when she was panicking. I knew when she needed me, and I helped her complete her life just recent. Now, I mean, helped her. I was like the psychic or emotional support with her, and when she was because of the hospitals being so filled. The several times that she was in the hospitals over the year or so we worked together, she couldn't have any visitors. Nobody could come in. She was isolated.
Terrible time to be terminally ill.
And she wasn't prepared to admit that she was terminally ill, and so she was abandoned in the hospital and hardly paid attention to. And so we had a psychic connection, and there was one time she was having a panic attack, and we practiced this before she went into the hospital, but I was able to talk her down using text, and then we got a phone that worked in video. So and I worked with her 24/7.
When you do that kind of work, yes. Do you also feel the physical effects? I understand that you have this mental link, but is it also taxing on your physical body?
Yes, it was very with just about anybody that I've worked with on that level, and I don't do it. This isn't something that I'm going to be doing or have done every day for years and years. It's like a project. Okay, it's like something else that I'm doing added on. So. I've never talked about this publicly, where we're going. I've never,
really?
Yeah, I've never. No, this is new to come out. I talked with people, but not so. With both this woman as well as Tom Patterson, the patient that had the superbug, there was a constant drain of my energy, and it was like I was. A human drip line, like you see
yeah,
it was like that with Tom, yes, as well as with this young woman, even more so with her. But with Tom, when he was in that coma for the 8 months, I went through a lot of interesting physical things, and I went through a lot of serious physical things the year after. So while he was in coma, I was having all kinds of personal PTSD episodes. I had PTSD, and I have I had developmental trauma disorder, which means I got the shit scared out of me when I was in the developmental stages of my life, and then Yes.
All right, we finally got it to go live. Figured it out. It was definitely my fault. Before we keep going on, just to announce you, we're talking with Robert Lindsy Milne. If anyone remembers, we chatted with him last November. He's a psychic, and he's from Toronto, Canada. So he's up there. What's it? Before we go back into the meat and potatoes, what's the temperature like up there today?
I think we're in. We would be around 80 degrees Fahrenheit.
That sounds so nice.
Yeah, we've had some hot weather recently. Now, when I was a kid, you know, the climate has really been different. You know, it's nowhere near as cold as it used to be, and it's a whole lot hotter than it was before.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely been hot here the last forever.
So how much was lost of what we were talking about? Like everything, or just?
We've got it all recorded. We've just had the audience join.
Yeah, we've got it recorded.
Oh, okay,
so
I see.
Can ask questions, but for the juicy stuff audience, go back. It'll be on YouTube and all the podcatchers. But let's real quick, just for the audience that are in right now, let's recap a little bit of your life.
Okay.
You were quite young when you became homeless as a child.
Well, the very first time I ran away, the first time I was 14 and a half.
Yeah.
And then the police caught me and brought me home. And then at 15 and a half, I left and I never really lived at home with my family again. I survived on the streets of downtown Toronto using and I was always the type, I chose to run away just about mid-November. So just coming up to winter, right? Like smart kids would run away in the spring, not me.
Yeah. Give it a chance to.
So I had always been psychic. I had always been aware that I was doing psychic things. At 4 or 5 years old, I was saying things to people that got me into trouble. And I never understood why. I would say something to somebody and then get hit for it. You know, Uncle Harold, that wasn't Aunt Sally. Who was that? You know, whack. I got hit for that one. I didn't know. There was one time I came home. I was five or six. Came home saying things to people that got me into trouble. I hear feedback.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So anyway, I came home for lunch. I said to my mother, Grandma Harris died today. So this was like 1955 or 1956. Grandma Harris actually was my great grandmother, and I'd only seen her once in my life. So a 6-year-old's not going to be thinking much about her. So I tell my mother, Grandma Harris died. She gets all upset, yells at me for saying bad things again. And she probably whacked me. One of those times she did. So the next night at dinner, my parents are sitting around, my sister Gail and I. My mother says to my dad, Grandma Harris died today. And I thought my dad was going to get angry with my mother, give her hell for saying bad things. But to my astonishment, they talked about it. And nothing happened.
One question that just popped up that I hadn't thought about was Jennifer asks, do you feel like a lot of psychics have had trauma and this has contributed to their abilities opening?
Almost every one of us that are really good have had major trauma issues.
Wow.
That's
part of the job that's what comes with, like a fighter gets beat up a lot. That's empaths, spiritual angels don't come down from the heavens pure. They come from hell and come upward. Okay. Healers don't come down from heaven. We climb out of hell. And empaths have had really difficult lives. And it's because of the difficult life, we understand what other people are feeling. And you can go one way or the other. You can be a sociopath or you can be an empath. I went the empath way, right? Because like the sociopath and narcissist, they don't give a damn.
Yeah.
They've been wounded too, right? So empaths keep in touch with their own humanity and become empathetic, as in they see how they are hurt themselves and they see others and they want to help because they're hurt.
So
yeah.
Jamie asks, perhaps you are a beacon. She says, perhaps he is a beacon. She says, I find myself attracting the lonely, most bizarre circumstances. People just know that I am an empath. Do you get a sense that your energy is bringing those that have the same energy to you?
Or maybe people that need help.
Well, I can be in a room with, 1,000 people and there's somebody going through a crisis and I know where that person is. Okay. I just see it. Even if I'm not even conscious of what I'm doing, it just happens. Now there is something that is really important that I learned at a really young age. There's only so much I can do. Sure. And there's only so much I can do for only a certain amount of people. And I always have free choice and free will with no guilt and no guilt whatsoever. I have free choice and free will and saying I'm not going to help. Another way to say it is I'm not going to do this project or I'm not going to take this mission. And I have free choice and free will to do that. And over my lifetime, I've acted upon that free will or free choice and free will. When I was younger, I was harsh about it. As I've gotten older, I've become gentler about it, saying no.
That's a great boundary to have with this ability, because it would be overwhelming if you took on this sense of responsibility for other people.
Yeah, and of course.
Whoa. The responsibility is my responsibility to give the best service that I can possibly give. The person that's receiving what I give or what they get from me, it's their responsibility to use it and direct it in any way they so choose.
Right.
Yeah, and also they may be troubled by something that is how can I say, maybe they're doing something with ill intent and
self-inflicted.
Or they're maybe doing something that would be unpalatable for you to want to be a part of.
Okay, if I do also have some really big boundaries as well with that. If I sense in any way that someone is taking what I give and use it as a weapon, I won't do it.
You just back right
I
off.
won't. Yeah, I will not allow anything that I do have a negative connotation or a negative influence. I just will not allow it. Like I would. So my free choice and free will is, you can't shoot that person. Okay. So you don't have free will there. You're not allowed to, or you're not allowed to hit that woman, or you're not allowed to be mean to people.
Yeah. Lie, cheat.
And if you're going to be mean to people, I'm not giving you energy.
Yeah.
So we had started covering, we had covered it in pretty great detail.
Wow.
The perfect,
I loved it. Yeah.
The Perfect Predator.
Yeah.
Which was a project, as you call it, that you worked on.
Yeah, I got the call, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I see it. I've had lots of calls. I got called by the RCMP and in the 1970s, and I actually had contact with a KGB agent, a direct personal contact.
Yeah, you told me that kind of.
Yeah. Okay.
The cloak and dagger. I remember that from the last show. And
yeah, now that's a job. Right. I took, that's an assignment.
100%.
The one with the woman, just recently there's another project.
Yeah.
And all the while I was doing readings too, right? And podcasts. So yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you do,
and you know what? When I talk about it, I'm starting to realize how fascinating my life is. You know.
Yeah, I don't know why you haven't wrote a book about what you've done.
We checked. I was like, he has to have written a book by now.
Well, you know, I do. I have literacy issue. I didn't learn to read and write until I was in my late teens. I taught myself.
They've got programs for that.
Now you just speak into it. It types it up.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, when I was there, they didn't have they didn't even have school programs for that. You know,
so when you.
Yeah.
Let's have a quick fun daunt into the into this KGB spy ring that you got involved.
Okay, so it was in the 70s, and I was
so USSR
mid-20s.
is strong in the 70s.
Yeah. Hey, in those days, the border at Niagara Falls was the place in the world where the most amount of intelligence was being passed at that border crossing in the world.
Yeah, because it was like a money launder, because it can move from one nation to another nation and
that's right,
and get
and often and by the way, often from Cuba.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I can tell you about that escapade too.
Because Cubans could come to Canada, but they couldn't come to the U.S.
That's right. I can tell you another, and because I got involved with the Soviet guy, I also had it sort of splashed over to a Cuban thing too, and I can tell you about that. So here's. In those days, I was just learning that I could be a telephone psychic, like doing psychic readings on the air, and I was just learning my craft, and very few people were doing it. And I was, and at that time, I had my own radio show on CJRN in Niagara Falls, by the way. But I lived in Toronto, and I was auditioning for a radio show in Ottawa, and I flew in to do that show. And now remember, this is in the 70s, so it's a whole different world. There's not any, fax machines or internet or, So I flew in, I did the show, and I flew back home. By the way, I got the spot. And a couple of days later, the news director phoned me, and he phoned, Robert, there is this guy, and he jokingly said, he said he's with Task News Agency, and then he said, but he jokingly said, but he's really a spy, a KGB agent, and this guy wants to see you and talk to you and do an interview, and I said, I don't want to see him. I'm not interested. Don't tell him my name. Don't give him my number. Nothing. I'm not interested. I don't want to know this. I was a hippie. I was into love and peace and doing psychic readings, and I don't want to see spies. So about a week later, some of my friends got a call from a couple of my friends. They're saying, Robert, this guy from the RCMP has been inquiring about you, asking questions about what type of person I am and shit. And I'm thinking, oh no, I was worried. I was worried. Well, I was worried about it could have been something else, because, cannabis wasn't legal in those days. I was worried that it might have been something, but I didn't deal, but I thought maybe it could have been that. So
you're flushing the toilet. Slow him down.
That's right. So anyway, after a while, I get this call from a guy. He introduces himself. He says his name is Sergeant from the RCMP, and he said he would like to meet with me and discuss a non-criminal matter. Huh. Okay. And I said, is it about the guy in Ottawa? And he said, yes. And I said, I don't want to be involved. And he said, would you just meet me and my partner and talk? And I said, okay. And he said, well, my partner's coming from Ottawa. He's the guy in charge of the Soviet desk, right? So, and anyway, this guy flies in, and they meet me in my office, and like they were wearing suits and stuff, and they didn't carry guns, and they just looked like really big businessmen or something. They were a lot bigger than me, and they were giving me a little bit of information, and then they weren't taking me very seriously. Until I said to the guy that came from Ottawa, I said, I can't remember. I used a name, and I said something about, and I used a Russian name, and let's just say Bolitnikov. That isn't what it was, but it was something like that, Bolitnikov. And they both looked at one another, and they looked back at me, and they said, "How do you know that?" And they got like really serious. And I said, I just picked it up from energy. He said, you are either psychic or
involved.
You're involved. And I said, well,
I'm psychic.
Did they do the test, comrade? Just to see what you went with that?
No, they were polite. They were really very respectful and mostly gentle until I came up with that name. And then I did a couple of psychic things for them, and they got really serious after that. And they said, well, here's the story. The guy that contacted you has spent most of his life in Washington, D.C., and he is a journalist. He is a journalist with TASS. However, he also happens to have diplomatic passport. And he lived at the Soviet, the Russian embassy in Washington. And he said it's been most of his whole life, his whole professional career. And he said, and then he got transferred to Ottawa, Canada's capital. So, hey, I love my country and stuff. That was not a promotion. That wasn't being sent down to slightly the minor league. That was like down to single A team level. Like that's really Now they thought that he was afraid that he was going to get called back to Russia. And they thought, and you Americans too, the Americans thought this too. They thought that he thought he was going to get called back to Russia and then get sent to Siberia, because it was just at the end of the Brezhnev era. Mm-hmm. And as Brezhnev was getting weaker, his power base around him was being eliminated and other power bases were coming in. And he thought, and they weren't on his side, and they thought he was looking to defect. And they told me that, and the Mounties told me that if I helped, I would do a great service for my country. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And so I agreed, and it was, and I said, so how do we set this up? And I had I started doing that monthly show in Ottawa. So they said, how about when you're going to go to Ottawa to do the show, agree to meet him. So I told the news director to give him my name and my number, and he contacted me on the phone, and I booked an in-person appointment for him. The Mounties had arranged a special hotel room for me in downtown Ottawa, and the room that I was in was a normal room, but both sides it was adjoining to apartments or rooms on both sides, and the two sides that were adjoining, is filled with all kinds of recording equipment and stuff like that. And the room I was in was wired, and made an appointment for the guy, and he came in. And He did not ask me one question about being psychic. He was not interested in that at all. And another thing that happened is because this was so serious, because they like the Mounties said, this was like a really big deal, because there were like several guys in the rooms. Like I wasn't there alone. Like they weren't wearing red uniforms, right? They're wearing jeans and t-shirts and stuff and suits. They gave me his background. They had a dossier on him, and they prepared me with all kinds of information. So when he came in, that's the first time and only time in my life I ever did something like that. So when he came in to get his reading, some of the information that these guys gave me was wrong. And so there I was prepped, but they wanted me to say to him somewhere in the reading, sometimes we get into trouble, and sometimes we need friends, and you've got some very good friends around you, or something like that, right? It was something that was prepared. So I was doing this reading for him and realizing that what I knew about him was wrong. So I just ignored everything that I was prepared with, and I just did the regular reading for him. I got near the end of it, and I did that little spiel, and he looked at me, and he stood up, turned around, walked right out the door. Didn't say a word. I was sitting in the chair still, and the recording was on. Anyway, he just got up, turned around, and walked away, just like that. And I thought I screwed it up, And what happened was when the guy, the Mounties come in, and they said, that was great. And I said, I think I screwed it up. He said, no, anytime they get, and he said, it's standard when anytime the Russians ever are put in a position where they're offered the opportunity to defect, that's what they do. They just get out of the way. He said, that's how they handle it. I thought, that's interesting. And that was the end of that. And I now that sort of ended. And then when we got back to Toronto, the guy that originally contacted me, he asked me, how was I at finding things? I hadn't ever done any of that shit before, but I said pretty good anyway. And he said, well, and he explained to me about Niagara Falls.
Man, I hope no one ever comes up to you and says, hey, can you fly a plane?
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, yeah, I can do it. I got the manual. Where do you turn it on?
You're riding in the taxi on the way there, reading a book on it real quick.
That's right. So anyway, he said some of the most prominent, most amount of information is passed at the Niagara Falls border, and it often happens in the park. And he said, what we do is look for, and he called it dead letter boxes. And he explained a dead letter box was a spot where you dropped off where intelligence was passed. Mm. And so every month I would go down there and I would look at maps of the park. And I would just put my hand over the areas and feel the energy. And then from there, where I felt the energy was strong, we'd actually go out in the park and look at the locations. And I found several dead letter boxes. But in those days, Canadian intelligence, we didn't go to other countries and spied. We just spied on the countries that were spying on us. And what we mostly did was watch what they were doing and then gave the information to you guys.
Yeah, Canada wasn't, back then, Canada wasn't very aggressive unless they were asked to join a war. Other than that, Canada was they were a peaceful broker on the world stage most of the time.
At the end of World War II, we had the fourth largest Navy in the world.
You did, and Canada was very involved in World War II
absolutely.
And World War I.
Yes. So that they were just watching. During that year and a half or two that I went down there, afterwards we'd go out party, right? and there was one time where the guy said to me, he said, your Russian friend? And I said, yeah. He said, it worked out. That was it. That's all I ever heard. Nothing more. It worked out.
Good.
Yeah.
And that was the end of that. So how did, if unless we don't have time, I can tell you about how it became. So at the same time, I was involved with this my really beautiful woman, and she was an Air Canada flight attendant. Incidentally, I met her on the flight to Ottawa when I was going to the audition, right? So we just happened to connect, and we're living together. And Eleanor was doing what they called Havana turnarounds. Mm-hmm. So that meant they took a flight down to Havana, dropped the passengers off, and then the plane did a turnaround. They came back. That was why Havana turnaround. And one day, and so they'd leave in the early evening, fly to Cuba, and then come back in the morning. And I would meet her at the airport, and one morning I was driving her home, and I said, "What's that envelope?" And she said, "Oh, that's from." It was, the name of a woman that worked on the gate, and she said, "Oh, that's so and so. Oh, she's really nice." And I said, "What's the envelope?" And she said, "Well, it's for her friend in Germany. She's got some magazines." And I said, "Oh, isn't that interesting?" So I phoned the guy I knew in Niagara Falls and told him. And then he phoned the guy in Toronto who was on the Cuba desk. And then they got in touch with us. And then he came up and talked with Eleanor. And they discovered that the airline flight attendants were bringing information back and sending it overseas, and also dropping it off here in Canada to people. And they didn't even know that they were doing it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Silent partners.
Well, they just be friendly with someone, say, "Oh, I've got a friend in Canada that knows someone that lives in your hometown, and if I send up some magazines,
that's right."
Probably the first few times they sent up, they probably just, I don't know what Cuban magazines are. How many pages of cigar can you read? But well, some of them would have been advertising or whatever, but they would have had, like, back then, I think they had micro film and things. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. They could have done that. So that was my journey into the world of spies. You should write a screenplay. That should be your book / screenplay. Yeah. Okay, so I want to focus in on I want to ask you kind of some hot questions. Early this month, the CIA released here's everything we know about aliens, and it said, we know nothing.
Yeah. Thank you for coming to our TED Talk.
Are they lying to us?
Are the people that gave that speech lying to you? See how I get off? Okay. Are you asking me, that person who was giving you that information, was he lying? She lying to you? Is that the question?
Well, no.
Because if that's the question, if that's the question, then no.
Oh, they don't know about the aliens. Okay.
But no.
That
but
one person at the mic may not have
at the mic did not know.
Okay, so valiant.
That person at the mic was told what to say.
Okay, see, we were all hoping, we were on the edge of our seats, pins and needles, because the CIA, all the intelligence agencies were going to release all the information that they had on UFOs, extraterrestrial life, possible contact, anything they had. They released, they says, yeah, we've seen strange stuff too. We don't know. And that's, honestly, some poor bastard wasted his time typing that up.
So to quote you, that poor bastard that was typing it up didn't know.
Okay.
He didn't know, or they didn't know. They don't know really what the information is. So that's why the person that was giving it was following out orders.
So they keep their.
They said, "Here it is." Yeah, yeah.
They keep their mouthpiece a mushroom.
It's plausible deniability.
Well, and also psychics can't break into that. So they take their mouthpiece out of the mushroom cabinet, kept in the dark, fed crap.
Yeah.
Take them out, and then they talk. They're completely honest, and then someone with any ability.
The person who, and it would be a civil servant, way at the top, would have said, "This is what it is. Tell the people."
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you get a feeling that governments or whatever has had contact with?
Okay, so going back to what I said at the very beginning, I've spent most of my life looking at the person in front of me rather than what's going on around. So I really don't know very much about these things. If you want to know about being psychic, like I'm your guy to talk to, and about behavior and inner growth and things like that. But when you start talking about paranormal and haunted houses and aliens and Bigfoot and I don't know anything. So and I haven't really been that interested. Because I've been so busy doing my thing. I personally believe that there are UFOs, there are aliens. And I believe, now, I also not much of a science fiction kind of person, but I love The Next Generation. Star Trek, right? That was my dream job. Would have been ship's counselor on Star Trek. Really? So my fantasy lesson would be to meet a Betazoid and get psychic lessons. So there are my two dreams, right? Ship's counselor on the Star Trek, or reasonable facsimile, or get instructed by a Betazoid. So I believe that some of those episodes where you see them looking down on it, looking over a more primitive race and doing stuff, I believe that kind of stuff happens here and has happened here, and I believe that some of this happened here, 5,000 years ago, and I also, although I don't have the facts even to be able to debate it, but I think there have been other civilizations on the planet 10,000 years ago that were equally sophisticated or evolved as what we are. Maybe not exactly the same technological way, but certainly equally as evolved, or maybe even more evolved.
Kind of like the Atlanteans and such
indeed, and there I think there's a lot of them, and so I believe in that. I don't have very much information to debate it. So I believe that kind of stuff too.
So pre and post, is there something that you do to get yourself ready to do a reading or a project, and then post? Do you have like physical side effects?
Oh yes.
From
yes,
giving your energy this way?
With the guy that was in the coma, I was my PTSD was getting triggered. It was a nightmare. I didn't know that Tom had PTSD.
Oh.
I didn't know that, but my PTSD was just getting triggered all over the place, and so that's just mental agony. When he was cured, as it were, and well on to his healing, I wasn't so involved. In fact, went from being connected with him 24/7 to talking to him every month or so. So from August 8th of 2017, and I was finished working with them, and the end of 2016, early 2017. So in August of 2017, I was carrying one of my little dogs down the stairs, and I tripped and fell backwards and broke 4 ribs. And it was really, and there was nobody home, and I was laying on the ground. So there was that accident. So 3-4 months later, I was running, and I tripped and fell, and I broke my shoulder.
Oh my gosh. Then
at Christmas time that year, I got up to pee, and I was walking down the hall and tripped and fell and whacked my head on the floor and had a minor concussion. And then a year following August, I was rear-ended in a car accident. So those 4 physical things happened to my body, and I didn't pull them together. I didn't put them all together until, again, I was talking with Tom and Stephanie, and we just sort of patched it all together, realizing that that was the physical effect that it had. With the woman that died, this just happened in the end of April, and I went from connecting with her 24/7 to her gone, and I had a lot of trouble doing readings during that period. If it were an emergency, I could have, but I just didn't have that much to talk about. It's an interesting experience to be psychically connected with somebody when they're completing their life. The different ways it happens, and the different ways they experience it. It's really quite an experience. Some are really cool. Some are just like, this is it, like they're accepting it. Others are in like major league panic mode. Some don't know what the hell's happening.
With your experience with that, what are your thoughts on it? What are your thoughts on the end of life? Will you be open and accepting, or will you be?
You know what? I have had the most amazing existence. I have had incredible highs, and the lows were really, really low, like really fucking low. But I was always my attitude as then and now, I would say, okay, I can handle this. And the more difficult it is, the greater my story is going to be when I'm old. Come on, I can handle it. So that's how I faced adversities. Still do. So I've had a lot of lows. I've had some incredible highs. And like, if I got hit by a lightning bolt, like right now, I'd go to wherever my maker is, and I'd say, what a ride. Thank you. And I've been in that space. I don't want to do that yet, but I've been in that space for several years.
So you're more comfortable with it,
well, it's going to happen. And
obviously.
And
accepting.
That's the one thing we all have in common.
And for me, I've followed my calling. I did what
found your purpose.
Really young.
That is amazing.
And I committed to it. I really committed to it. At around 21, I was really sure that I was going to do this for the rest of my life. I always knew, but there was different times of reaffirming. This is what I was going to do. So around 21, when I stopped working at the tea room, I heard that if a young man became a priest or a Roman Catholic priest, when ordained, he would make a vow to say a mass every day of his life. Yeah. And I thought, if I'm going to do this and it's going to be my calling, then I vowed to do a psychic reading or practice being psychic every day of my life. And I made it for about 30 years without missing a day.
Wow.
And after about that long stretch, I missed a day. But I missed a day because I wanted to find out what it felt like to miss a day.
So you did it on purpose.
So yeah, it's like I have. Well, I've stolen one thing in my life. I've never ever gone into a store and taken something. I've never stolen, and once I did. And I went my whole life doing that. I've been on the street hungry, and I wouldn't steal. I just didn't. So I was about 52 at this time, and I wanted to know what it like to steal something, because I've never done it before.
A little late to the game.
Yeah, well, I just wanted the experience.
And you got different tastes, so you stole like a cheese that you like instead of a candy bar.
Close. Well, close. That's pretty close. So I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, and what I wanted to do also was not get caught.
Well, yeah.
So I went to this grocery store that I went to a lot. Oh, I cased the place out. Checked to see where that. I checked the place. It looks like I was going to rob, Fort Knox, but I wanted the full experience, right? So, I checked where all the cameras were and stuff like that, and on different angles, and walked her. So after casing the store for several times, I finally, on the day I was going to do my deed, I came in. I was doing my normal shopping, and I went down the spice row, and there was, and I made my decision right then and there what I was going to steal. And I stopped at the spice rack, and there were these tubes, and inside the tube was a vanilla bean, right? And it was like in a glass tube. So what I did is I reached over and I picked up two. And I started to look at them, and then I slid one down my sleeve, and I put the other one back. And then I just walked around and with it up my sleeve, just before I got and then I got to the cash register, and I was getting ready to get busted and everything, right? And I paid my money and got out of the store and left. And I was thinking
that is something a teenager would have never stole.
Well, yeah. So anyway, so I did that. And so now I understood what it felt like to steal. So the next day I went back to the store and I said, I accidentally picked this up. I didn't pay for it, and I paid for it. So that was my sojourn in crime. So sometimes I do things just to experience it, to see what it's like.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Awesome.
That's hilarious.
The best story.
Yeah. And I'm playing with myself too, right? And I went through all the emotions, and it was really.
I'm sure it's thrilling.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
But
so that's how I stole.
Stole a vanilla bean.
Have you ever done a reading where you meet the person and perhaps right away, or you start the reading and you realize that this is just a really bad person? Or is anybody really bad? Or just
interesting
decisions
question.
Bad?
Okay. That's two different questions, two very different questions. When I do a reading for somebody, sometimes, just because you have the money to get a reading from me doesn't mean you get a reading. And that's not necessarily the main criteria. And a minimum of 10%, and maybe even as high as 20% of the people that come to me don't get a reading. And the reason for it is because if I don't think I'm doing the absolute best that I can, I don't do it. So you see, I guarantee my work. If I guarantee my readings, and it's kind of like this. If I do a reading for you, I guarantee you that from the time you get your reading until the day I die or you die, whatever comes first, I guarantee that you will feel and believe the service that I have given you is a very high quality, worthwhile service. And if for any reason you change your mind, in the old days, I'd say, give me back your tape or your cassette and I'll give you back your money. Now I just say, you tell me, I just give them the money. Now I don't give them today's money. If a guy had a reading from me 30 years ago, I'm not going to be giving the guy $200, right?
They're using you as an investment, a growth engine.
Right. That isn't going to happen, but I do give the money back. So that's how and I hate doing that. Like, it eats my guts out. So I would rather not do it than do a poor job or a job that's below. So usually I can tell very quickly. There are times in the middle of a reading I'll decide that I'm not doing a good job. And there have been times at the end of the reading where I'd say to the person, I'm very sorry. This is just not good enough. There's no charge. I don't give them the recording and I apologize.
If someone's in a lot of life chaos, can that make a reading harder?
Well, it can, but I'm pretty good at understanding chaos. So and I've had some pretty scuzzy people come to me for readings, and I've done some readings for some pretty scuzzy people.
Like Jeffrey Epstein scuzzy?
Oh, that would be a big one. That would be a tough one to get over.
Yeah, well, and that'd be a tough one to live with if you gave advice and saw insight into that privation.
Well, okay. I wouldn't. Well, I'm never going to do that for him anyway. But I've been in similar situations. So, when I tune in to do a reading, one of the reasons that I don't do a reading is because if I don't feel love for that person, I can't tune in. Oh. Now, it's not like turned on sexual kind of love.
Sure.
It's not I like you love. It's a sense of loving that being. And it's a very beautiful, very pure feeling. If I feel that, well, I feel that for everyone I do a reading for. If I can't feel that, then I can't tune in.
Oh.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. I have done readings for sociopaths, and I have tuned into them, and I have felt love for them. While I was feeling love for them, I also was feeling disgust.
So you feel love for, say, the humanity, the
indeed so. That's correct.
But you can tell that they lack that. They have a void.
I can tell that they do evil things, and I do my best not to judge it, at least in that state. So while I'm feeling that for them, I can do their reading, and then when the reading's over and they leave, I have a shower, but that's usually now. But there are times where there's someone that I like. But when it comes time to tuning in, I can't get a feeling of love. Wow. Sometimes just doesn't happen. So for me, when I tune in, I feel love and there's an acceptance of the spiritual part. This is the very first time I've ever talked about what I'm talking about right now, this next, publicly. And I've been working on this in my head. Okay, so you hear the story, the saying, hate the sin, love the sinner, right? Like, it's really tough to even like some piece of garbage that would do something like that, or whatever it is, right? How could you love them? Even when you're being spiritual, how could you love something like that? So I actually, I've been thinking about this for a long time, years, and I put something together. So on our plane, or the way we think, most of us, and me too, how could you love somebody that's done something like that? Even though you hate the sin, you're going to love the sinner. How could you love somebody that would be capable of doing that? Well, that's in this lifetime. So I've learned some theories about reincarnation. And there's this theory that we travel around with groups of other spirits and other souls. And we go around very much like if you think of an actor's ensemble, like a bunch of people. Like a troupe, yeah, going from town to town, and every town they go to, they play a different play, and each person plays a different role. And when they are on stage, they manifest this role, whether it's the pure virgin or whether it's the homicidal maniac. They take on that character.
Or the vanilla bean thief.
Or the vanilla bean one. Yeah. Oh, you got me on that. Oh, I know. I've repented. So
I just think it's hilarious.
Good one.
For my first time, I'm going to go out and steal something quite bougie, quite sophisticated thievery.
That's funny. So if you see it that way, so when we come down here, we all take on a role, a persona.
Yep.
And then when the life is over, we go back to the pod, and then we take on who we really are. Just as the actors going from town to town, one time playing this, somebody else playing that, but when they're finished and they're having a beer and smoking a joint afterwards, they're pals again.
Yeah.
And then they go to another town and play another part. So hate the sinner. Hate the sin, love the sinner, because the sinner's playing a role.
Yeah,
I like that analogy, because we have to all remember that we too are playing a role, and our response is a part of that role. And sometimes if we can step out of the acting character that we have taken on, the persona we have taken on, we can remember that this person who's done this horrible thing is actually, a part of our soul family or connections.
Yeah, we talked.
Here's the other thing, though. Here's the other thing, is that the law of karma. See, karma is neither reward nor punishment. Karma is, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. That's what karma is. So if you do this, you do that. And also another rule that we live by, whether we realize it or not, what we are one way, we are equally the opposite. So we are as equally negative as we are positive.
I hadn't thought of that. I think about karma a lot, but I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
But we would have to be in order to get to that point.
See, the purpose of life. Oh, wow, I've never done this publicly either. The purpose of life is to experience all things on all levels. That's what it is. And you have free choice and free will to experience anything you want. Now, on this planet, in this universe, right, in this solar system, this planet, there's accountability. Well, that's one thing. But you always have free choice and free will. So you can do anything you want. There's one rule. What you do one way, you must do equally the opposite.
Or live with equally the opposite.
Well, you will experience equally as part of the process, and often everything in between. So that's what the purpose of that's the purpose of life.
So in my last life, I was handsome, tall.
Well, and even in this life, it makes me want to stay middle ground. Don't do anything really great, because then you'll have to do things really bad.
No, that's not what it's about. It's, you see, if you do something in moderation, then you'll do the opposite anyway, and that would be excess. And you will do it, no matter what you do. You see.
Oh yeah.
You see, you cannot eliminate negative, or you cannot eliminate positive. Spiritual masters don't eliminate negative. What they do is they stay balanced. So a spiritual master is aware of the fact that they are equally negative as they are positive. And when getting pissed off, you can zap somebody. So the master realizes that and stays in tune. So there was this one episode on The Next Generation where, they found this couple, this man and a woman dancing on a planet that was, there couldn't be any life on, except for there was this house in the garden, and this inhabitable planet. And the enterprise wanted to know why they were doing that. And they didn't, the people the two people on the planet didn't want them to know why they were there. Anyway, they got down there, and it turns out that the man was actually a wanderer, a traveler through the universe, and he could manifest anything that he wanted, and he came across this beautiful human, and he fell madly in love with her, and they went away to this deserted planet, and he created a Garden of Eden. And he was going to love her forever, and was just having this glorious experience, kind of like your dog, right? And I just thought of that. So then there were these really evil beings in the universe that came along and killed everybody, and they came onto the planet, and they killed that woman. And the being, became enraged. And his reaction was he killed them all. But he didn't kill the ones that were just on the attack. He killed everyone in the universe in his moment of rage. And he then recreated and brought an image of her back to life. And he was experiencing this with her. And he, in the same time, was paying a penance for destroying this race. And so, at the end of the episode, he says to Captain Picard, right? He said, Captain Picard, there must be some punishment you'll have in your society. You can punish me any way your society warrants. And Picard said, in our society, we have no such crime. We can't punish you. You'll have to punish yourself. So I realized that and this guy was a beautiful, balanced, real spiritual being. But in that moment of rage, he went to the other side, and we must all remember that part of us. We all have it. So it's not eliminating negative. It's staying balanced.
So how would I go about getting a reading from you?
You could contact me on my website, robertlindsymilne.com. You can find me on Facebook, and you can find me on Instagram. I've been getting used to that because I'm going to be doing my own podcast soon. So I've been practicing doing all the call to action.
Yes.
I said, what call to? Someone says call to action. Man, let's get the rifles out and get, there's a war going on. Call to action. I had to tell my, if you're watching us on YouTube, we're on Apple, Spotify, and there's a whole speech. It took a long time to do that, but that was my latest one.
So what does it look like? Is it
my podcast or a reading?
A reading, and then
okay.
And then let's cover your podcast because we'd like to promote it too. It's fairly new, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, first episode is going to be done August 5th. We've been in rehearsals. I've been in rehearsals. Maybe I took the longest to get ready.
Hold on. What's a rehearsal you speak of? You don't just stumble into a spare room with a crappy mic and talk, and it sounds like
I have two people. One's looking after all the technical stuff, another one's doing all the artistic stuff. Michelle is also helping me with the creative and stuff, and they're putting it all together, and I'm just coming on to do it. It's going to be called My Side of the Crystal Ball. That's going to be called My Side of the Crystal Ball. So the way I do readings, and I do readings differently than just about everybody on the planet. So my readings are a monologue rather than a dialogue. And so I don't ask questions. So when I get do a reading for somebody, they come in, sit down, and I ask two questions. How old are you today? What month is your next birthday? I don't even want to know the number. So I want to know how old you are. That's where you are in time. And then I want to fine tune it. What month is your next birthday? So now I know exactly where you are in time. When I do a reading, I start off with a little mantra to my, and it's a normal one where I've used the introduction. This is Friday, July, what's today, the 19th? Friday,
16th.
July, whatever the day is, Friday, July something, 2021, psychic reading for, Mary Smith by Robert Lindsay Milne in Toronto. That's my warm up. And then I stop the reading. If it's in person, I stop it, the recording. And then I ask the two questions. If I'm doing online, I ask the two questions first. And then I turn the recording back on and I say, here we are today in July 2021. What I'm going to be discussing with you today. And that's how I start. I'm constantly telling myself the date. And the reason is when I tune in, I see someone's life from conception. I don't see the act of conception. I just see the time when it happens to the completion. And I see one side and the other. I don't spend a lot of time at either end unless there's a reason. But I look at it, bring it up. And then I mostly talk about where they're at. So in this time period. So I start off and I say, I'm going to talk a little bit about the future. I'll come back to the present, into the past, back to the present, and then into the future again. After this, there'll be a question period. And then I'll say, even if I make a mistake, you think I've made a mistake, please don't interrupt me. Because what I'm doing is building a picture of this person's life. And I kind of, it's like painting a picture. I paint a little bit here and then paint a little bit there, and I go back and forth. And what I'm doing is going back and forth in time. And if they interrupt me, what happens is like unplugging from the internet. The way I do readings now, and now it's a little bit more advanced, so one of the reasons it's best not to interrupt me is because a lot of the times, what I'm saying is it's already been processed and it's being delivered. Often what I'm thinking about is what I'm going to be saying next. And at this time, so it's like having a TV screen on the wall. Well, right now it's about four for me, four TV screens, and each one has a different channel. Each one's going. So I'm constantly going back and forth in the screens, unless in the present, like some shit's going on, to get really into that one at the moment. So what I'm thinking about is what I said, what I'm about to say, the overall concept of where I'm seeing this going, and what I might be doing later on that day. And they're all happening at the same time. And then when something in my head, and when it's coming out, I've filtered it, and I have that pattern, and I have a structure that I follow through. And after doing all of that, then there's a question period.
And your podcast,
mostly,
what will you be discussing on your podcast? What's the...
Well, a whole bunch of things. The first hour is going to be about, how tonight or today I talked about the meaning or the purpose of life, or that kind of stuff. I'm going to have guests that are more focused on the psychic areas that, like I know. They'll be short. A friend of mine will be an astrologer. He's going to, do some, once a month we'll do, talk about astrology and do some forecasts. I'll have a therapist come on, other psychics, and all through that area. The second hour is going to be about all the other types of people that you have on, and interested in paranormal and I think haunted houses, and just as long as it's not blood and guts and gore, and I'll be interviewing people that do that. So and it's for my personal education, so
it's
I can
going to be fun.
be both.
I'm excited to subscribe.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to be doing my 4 podcasts a month as the interviewed as well, plus my weekly own podcast.
Wow.
Good.
Plus all my readings and all my shows. Yeah. So I'm back to work full time. 72, working full time. It's
Just
great.
like
It's
that.
great. Life is beautiful. Just like that.
Retirement's over.
I was waiting for it. Well, I never did retire. It was just, most people that do readings, 500 readings a year would be like their best year.
Oh my gosh.
That would be somebody's best, most people. And that was me slowing down. It works out to, 3 readings a day, 5 days a week.
How do you decompress? Do you I can imagine just all of this flow of information would have me oversensitized in a sense. Is there something that you do to just kind of ground yourself, decompress, get back to Robert's life versus in everyone else's?
When I finish reading, it's done.
That's it.
It's over. I have nothing more to say. If it's when I say usual, and there's no normal. When I say usual is that my client didn't freak out. My client wasn't worried about dying. They had some emotional issues, or stuff like that. When it's just one of those things. And I'm not minimizing, but if it's just one of everyday kind of stuff, when the reading's over, it's done and I'm finished. If it's something, really nasty, or the exact opposite, really extreme, positively, I'll think about it. If it's more nasty, I'll think about it, and I'll think about ways of how I could have handled it, or did I get it right, or did I have the right to do it? So it'll stay with me for a while. If I'm seeing somebody and they've had a tragedy and they're crying their heart out for something or someone that they lost, that will stay with me. But I'm pretty good at letting it go after a short amount of time. I can, do that. And I just often distract myself, is go out and do something different, hang out with my dogs, go see people. The other thing that I do when I get messed up or bummed out, is I go out and give things to people. Like you said, I was homeless, and as a kid. And by the way, I never panhandled. I always survived on my instincts. I never panhandled or begged. So the neighborhood that I was in, the area where I was, became the gay village in Toronto, but it wasn't the gay village when I was homeless. I often go back to that area, and I give coins to people that are on the street, but I don't give them $1 or $2. I collect coins, and the bags fill up to about $40 in coins, and I have several of those, and I walk around looking for people that look like they're barely making it, and so I'll go over and talk with them a bit, and sometimes I play with them in a honorable way. I treat them with great respect, but I play with them. There's this one guy. He's sitting down cross-legged, and there's a coffee cup in front of him, Now, I know what the coffee cup was for, is to put money in, right? And that's what it was for. So I go walking by, and I've got like this plastic bag full of, $40 worth of coins. And I'm walking by this guy, and I step just past him, and then I stepped backwards, and I turned and I looked into the cup. And I looked up at the guy, and I said, "Excuse me, sir, is this your cup?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, what do you do with it? What's it for?" And he said, "It's for money, to put money in." And I said, "You're not doing very good today." And he said, "No, it's been tough." And I said, "Well, here, tell you what, maybe this will make your day a little bit better." And instead of putting the bag of coins in his cup, I put it in his hand. And I just handed it to him and said, "Hi, have a good day." And I walked away laughing all the way down the street, right? Because I'd look back and see him counting, Another time I went to a guy, and he was sitting there, and he wasn't putting any effort into getting it. And I said to him, and he had a sign that said "spare change." So I walk up to him and I say, "Excuse me, sir, your sign says spare change. I'm sorry, I don't have any change. What can we do? Would you be insulted if I gave you a bill? Because I know you wanted change, but would it be okay if I gave you like $1 bill or something like that?" And they said, "Oh yeah, I'll take one." And I gave him 2 20s, and I walked away and said, "Have a good day." My favorite
He's
of all time.
He's probably still telling people about that. Like their inner circles. He's like, "This guy walked up to me and was like thinking I was going to be insulted because he didn't give me change." And I look for the ones that are just close to being broken. The ones that might not make it through the night. Yeah. There was another time, and at the corner of Wellesley and Church, which is right in the gay section, there's a hot dog stand. That hot dog stand has been there for 40 years. And when I became more successful, I had a condominium in that area. And I used to get hot dogs there when I was doing well in the condominium, and when I was on the street. And I brought, my stepkids there to get their hot dogs. So there was this one time I'd given out my coins, or some of them, and I ordered a hot dog, leaning up against the wall, and I looked down the street, and there is the dirtiest kid I've ever seen. Kid, 20, 21. And I've never seen anybody so dirty. He was just filthy dirty. And he's walking up to me, and he says to me, "Could you spare $1?" And I said, "What's it for?" And he said, "Well, you don't want to know." And I said, "Well, yeah, I do. What's it for?" He said, "Do you really want me to tell you?" And I said, "Yes, I want you to tell me." And he said, "Well," and I said, "And I'm not going to give you $1 if you don't tell me." So he says, "I want to buy drugs." And I say, "For $1? Who's your dealer?"
Take me to him now.
Yeah. I'll give you 5 if I can go.
Yeah. And I said to him, "What kind of drugs are you going to get for $1?" And he said, "Well, pot." And I said, "For $1?" And I said, "Okay." So I reach in my pocket and I give him one of my, $40 bags. And this kid has got it. And he's looking at me, and he's looking at the bag, and he says, "Are you looking for a date?"
Oh my gosh.
And I said, "Oh, no, man. No. I'm not looking for a date." And he said, "Why have you done this?" And I said, "Because you're worth it." And he got all teared up, and he went to hug me. And I said, no, that's cool. You don't have to hug me. But I feel it, I feel it. Thank you. And he started to walk away. And I said, "Hey, wait a minute. I can help you just a little bit more." Reached in my pocket, pulled out a joint, and I gave it to him. I said, "Here, try that one." So when I go out like that,
come by.
Yeah. What kind of pot is costing him $1?
I have no idea what he was doing with
what
it.
lawn next to what
That's absolutely
hydrant was it stepped on?
That's right. So that's so when I go out and so when I'm feeling bad or messed up, or bummed out, or the world's tough on me, I do things like that.
That's awesome.
That's how I usually handle it.
So before we let you go today, what a great interview. We don't want to monopolize your time.
Have me back again. I'd love to.
Oh, for sure.
We would love to have you back, especially once you get your podcast going. I'd like to watch a few and then talk about it.
Okay.
Do you have any messages for us?
You mean from like the spirits?
Well, just like future messages. Is there anything that you would like either us or just people in general to know?
In 2 years from now, America's economy is going to be booming. A lot of the frustration that's in and around your society right now, there's going to be an event, and I don't know what it is. There's going to be an event that will unite Americans to the point where you'll recognize that because you're different and have different social beliefs, you're Americans, and you'll start working together again, and it has to be this way. The anger, the resentment, the yelling, screaming, it has to be this way to heal what the injuries, the wounds are. And that's a process going on over the next couple of years. Americans will get it. And that's why America is great. So about 2 years from now, your economy is going to be just blasting off. You're going to be building infrastructure. There's going to be like space research. Troops that have been away for a long time will be home. And America's going to be a different version, but better, healthier, warmer, more loving to each other.
I like it. I like it.
America is great.
Everyone, now, if you want to go check out Robert, you go to robertlindsymilne.com. It'll be in the show notes. But if you do need, if you don't want to look at show notes, it's robertlindsymilne.com. That is one word, Robert Lindsy Milne.
It is, yeah. For my website, yeah.
Yes, and remember, Lindsy is Lindsy, no EY, and Milne is spelled like the common spelling, Milne. Go there, check it out, and you can go, search his page, schedule an appointment to have an interview with him or a reading with him, everything else,
You can also see my Facebook page. You'll get an idea of where I'm at these days and what I'm posting.
Okay, yeah, and we'll share your Facebook on there.
Thanks.
And thank you so much for coming on.
It's been great.
This is a fun chat. I of course have my favorite part, the bougie thievery. I just picture a sophisticated gentleman of the ages driving up in his conservative Oldsmobile car.
Yes.
Case in the place, case in the store.
Love it.
Wondering what he's gonna steal, and he steals a vanilla bean. Good.
And then gave it back.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It was so great to see you, Robert.
Thank you.
Good to see you again, and we will talk to you again real soon.
Looking forward to it.
Have a good week. We're going to do another show this week. We got another one coming up. We haven't decided whether we're going to do it live yet or whatever. It's going to be a story show, but it will be our 100th episode, so it's going to be kind of a little bit to do.
Yeah.
By the way, if you've ever have a guest that bails on you, and you're short of time, call me.
Will do.
If I'm free, if I'm free, you got me.
Will do.
That's awesome.
Okay.
All right, we'll
Thanks,
reach
Robert.
out to you. Thank you very much. Hey, have
See
a
ya.
wonderful day.
Thanks. Bye.